What made Bruce Lee such an icon was not his portfolio of martial arts films, but rather his philosophy. This is what elevated him above other film stars at the time and cemented him as a legend with a legacy that would outlast his films. But what exactly was Bruce Lee's philosophy all about? If you dig a little deeper than the handful of quotes and memes circulating the web, what do you find? How does his philosophy define who he was and ultimately dictate the course of his career and personal development? In this video, we're going to find out. Bruce Lee studied philosophy along with psychology and numerous other subjects at the University of Washington from 1961 onwards. Philosophy was not a passing interest then, but rather a lifelong pursuit as crucial to the man as his martial arts. It's also interesting to put Bruce Lee's philosophies into context by considering his influences. Of course, Bruce Lee was Chinese living in the USA, which instantly gave him an interesting dualism. As we'll see, the roots of many of his ideas also lie in the study of martial arts, and particularly Wing Chun. And don't forget as well that Bruce Lee was alive during the 60s, when Eastern philosophies were particularly in vogue. It should come as no surprise, then, that Bruce had countless musings and notes on a diverse range of topics. Like any good polymath, Bruce Lee kept copious notes that recorded his training regime, along with his diet, his philosophical musings, and more. He always carried a 2x3 pocketbook, and perhaps this predilection for note-taking is the first thing we can learn from him. It is from these notebooks that many of his views and ideas have been gleaned, covering practically every topic under the sun. Bruce Lee did not just write about martial arts. To demonstrate this diversity, consider this passage on the nature of ideas. There are three types of ideas: innate ideas, inborn, adventitious ideas, from outside events, factitious ideas, which one invents. It's almost like reading Sun Tzu. So if I were to try and cover all of Bruce Lee's thoughts and ideas, this would be a very long video indeed. Instead, let's appear on what appears to be the essence behind many of these ideas, the governing principle, if you wish. By using something akin to qualitative analysis, I've had a look at a lot of his notes and his ideas, and I've looked for recurring themes, and that way hopefully we can see if there's a cohesive narrative that we can take from all this. So if we're to look through all of Bruce Lee's notes and quotes, then one concept arises more than any other, that of flow. This is exemplified by one of his most famous quotes. This is what it is. Okay, I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend, as well as many more lesser-known ones. One of my favorite quotes. Moving be like water. Still be like a mirror. Respond like an echo. Or to put this bite-sized morsel within its larger context, flow in the living moment. We are always in a process of becoming, and nothing is fixed. Have no rigid system in you, and you'll be flexible to change with the ever-changing. Open yourself and flow, my friend. Flow in the total openness of the living moment. If nothing within you stays rigid, outward things will disclose themselves. Moving be like water, still be like a mirror. Respond like an echo. This can be interpreted in many ways. One of the most obvious connections to draw is to the martial arts application. It appears that Bruce Lee is advising us to stay adaptable to our opponents and almost describing Mushin, the Zen expression of mind without mind. And Mushin, as I've explained on my website, can be equated roughly to being in a flow state. It is the mental state when all other things fall away and you're present purely in the moment. This makes you faster to respond, faster to adapt, and less distracted by outside thoughts today. We know that this state roughly correlates with a reduced activation in the prefrontal cortex called temporal hypofrontality, and the state is reportedly experienced by many top-level athletes as well as creative types during their peak performance. Bruce speaks of being in the moment. The moment has no yesterday or tomorrow. It is not the result of thought and therefore has no time. Being in the moment can also be likened to more modern mindfulness practices, and indeed Bruce's descriptions bear remarkable similarity. Listen, can you hear the wind? And can you hear the birds singing? You have to hear it. Empty your mind. You know how water fills a cup. It becomes that cup. You have to think about nothing. You have to become nothing. This liquid flowing state can also see application in kung fu practices such as pushing hands, and Bruce has alluded to this concept directly. There is another bit of Chinese philosophy that has a bearing on problems common to all humankind. We say, the oak tree is mighty, yet it will be destroyed by a mighty wind because it resists the elements. The bamboo bends with the wind and by bending survives. He also developed this idea further in his own words, the law of harmony, in which one should be in harmony with and not in opposition to the strengths and force of the opposition. This means that one should do nothing that is not natural or spontaneous. The important thing is not to strain in any way. This is seen in kung fu when defending against strikes. The objective here is not to block the strikes head-on, but rather to redirect the energy gently. The fighter thereby exerts less energy, feels less impact from the blow, and is able to put the assailant off balance using their own force. When performed correctly, it should feel almost as though they are fighting a ghost. The idea of remaining adaptable, flexible, and flowing can also be applied in other ways. For example, it can be seen as a retaliation against strict forms, traditions, and practices, which is essentially what gave birth to Jeet Kune Do. Jeet Kune Do is Bruce Lee's own approach to fighting that seeks to do away with the classical mess. Rigid forms and structures are meaningless, and so why should one learn elaborate routines or add unnecessary flourishes to their movements? Why should a fighter be wed to one style of martial art at all when all that does is limit their options? Jeet Kune Do is the way of the intercepting fist, and it teaches the fighter to take the shortest and most powerful and instinctual line of attack. It teaches them not to anticipate, but to respond and to do so in the way that is most natural expression of that individual. In Cantonese, the way of the intercepting fist. Intercepting fist or foot. Come on, touch me any way you can. You see, to reach me, you must move to me. Your attack offers me an opportunity to intercept you in this case. I'm using my longest weapon, my sidekick, against the nearest target, your kneecap. Bruce Lee's final film, The Game of Death, was to demonstrate the futility of sticking through rigid fighting forms and the importance of adaptability. You know, baby, this bamboo is longer, more flexible, and very much alive. And when your flashy routines cannot keep up with the speed and the elusiveness of this thing here, all I can say is you're going to be in deep trouble in that. In the film, Bruce Lee was going to ascend a pagoda, fighting masters of various different disciplines on his way to the top. His character fights using a free and fluid style akin to Jeet Kune Do, and this allows him to neutralize each opponent. Bruce's weapons in the film would even reflect this nunchucks and a green bamboo whip, both too fast and too light to block or anticipate. The idea of flowing like water can also be applied to many other areas of one's life. The idea of ignoring convention and structure in favor of flexibility, for example, can help to create harmony among religious groups too. Religions divide people, just as styles and martial arts divide people. If all the religions of the world were one, the world would be united in brotherhood. Constantly flowing and moving forwards can also be a key to happiness. Learn to walk on. Why add the tension of emotion and thought to a situation which is illusion, to the extent that it is real, of a passing moment? In any event, the result of previous causes. Do what seems wise to be done. Forget it and walk on. Walk on and see a new view. Walk on and see the birds fly. Walk on and leave behind all things that would dam up the inlet or clog the outlet of experience and even to health. The method for health promotion is based on water, as flowing water never grows stale. The idea is not to overdevelop or overexert, but to normalize the function of the body. And here's what I find so awesome about Bruce, that he honed his body to become a living testament to the philosophies by which he led his life. His power, fluidity of movement, speed and quickness of wit all allowed him to respond as a situation demanded, and to truly and swiftly express himself in the moment. This comes across in his films, and I feel it's the real reason that he's so magnetic to watch. And you have to train. You have to keep your reflexes so that when you want it, it's there. When you want to move, you're moving, and when you move you are determined to move. Not taking 1 inch, not anything less than that. If I want to punch, I'm going to do it, man, and I'm going to do it, you see. So that is the type of thing you have to train yourself into it, to become one with the you think, yeah, this is very un-Western, this attitude. Bruce also believes strongly in the power of will, in self-development, and in achieving self-actualization. This was around 1954 when Maslow described actualization in his hierarchy of human motivation. So again, this thinking may be a product of the time. Bruce Lee believed in fulfilling your destiny on using mantras and self-affirmations, again similar to cognitive behavioral therapy. He believed in reading copious amounts and on repetitious training in the extreme. But how do these notions gel with the idea of being free and flowing? Is exerting your will and learning a set knowledge not a contradiction to being able to adapt and go with the flow? Not entirely. If you think of yourself as a crucial part of nature, that your will is something that exists within and that simply needs to be expressed, then going with the flow means going with your own nature, being true to who you are, and working in harmony with your circumstances to express that true self to the fullest. Knowledge and repetition are simply tools that can be used to help you fulfill your own purpose, and should not be seen as absolute truths and should not be allowed to guide or mold you into a different person. As Bruce would say, all type of knowledge ultimately means self-knowledge. You should absorb what is useful and discard what is not. Instead of dedicating your life to actualize a concept of what you should be like, actualize yourself. The process of maturing does not mean to become a captive of conceptualization. It is to come to the realization of what lies in our innermost selves. Many of us struggle to be who we are and instead find ourselves trying to live up to others' ideas of what we should be, to societal norms or to our herd instinct. This is when we are going against our true nature, and this is when our words and actions lose their conviction and their power, the power that Bruce was so known for. But to express oneself honestly, not lying to oneself, and to express myself honestly. Now that, my friend, is very hard to do. What does self-willed mean? Does it not mean having a will of one's own? The human herd instinct demands adaptation and subordination, but for his highest honors, man elects not the meek, the pusillanimous, the supine, but precisely the self-willed man, the heroes. A self-willed man has no other aim than his own growth. He values only one thing, the mysterious power in himself, which bids him live and helps him to grow. His only living destiny is the silent, ungainsayable law in his own heart, which comfortable habits make it so hard to obey, for which the self-willed man is destined and Godhead. In other words, it is when we deny our true nature and will that we meet resistance, even if it might seem easier at first to go along with those comfortable habits and those laws. The yielding will has a repurposeful ease, soft as downy feathers, a quietude, a shrinking from action, an appearance of inability to do. The heart is humble, but the work is forceful. Placidly free from anxiety, one acts in harmony with nature. One moves and revolves in the line of creation. Practice and research allows us to better fulfill our will, but we must concentrate on the moon, not the finger, and we mustn't settle on one set of ideas or allow them to stop us from growing. An intelligent mind is one that is constantly learning, never concluding. Styles and patterns have come to conclusion, therefore they have ceased to be intelligent. Absorb what is useful, discard what is useless, and add what is specifically your own. Of course, there are some contradictions in Bruce Lee's thinking, and this is to be expected. After all, we have only collections of notes written at different points during his life. As the very nature of his philosophy demands, Bruce's ideas were constantly changing, flowing and developing. And who are we to say whether his latter ideas should trump the former? All we can do is listen to his teachings, reflect on them, and then move forwards, allowing them to empower our own philosophy and purpose. A teacher is never a giver of truth. He is a guide, a pointer to the truth that each student must find for himself. A good teacher is merely a catalyst. It is like a finger pointing away to the moon. Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory. Do you understand? The biggest tragedy, of course, is that Bruce was never able to fully develop and evolve his ideas, as he was struck down before his time. Who knows what new insights he might have come to? But even on the subject of death, Bruce was philosophical. The round of summer and winter becomes a blessing the moment we give up the fantasy of eternal spring. Remembrance is the only paradise out of which we cannot be driven away. Pleasure is the flower that fades. Remembrance is the lasting perfume. Remembrances last longer than present realities. I have preserved blossoms for many years, but never fruits. As always, guys, thanks very much for watching. I hope you found this interesting. I was trying something a bit different here. It seems like I'm always trying something a bit different. Anyways, if you did find it interesting, then please consider liking the video, sharing, leaving a comment below, and maybe subscribing to the channel. You can also check out my blog over at thebioneer.com. Stay tuned and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.